Hello and welcome back to Ripples by Gia. As you all know me, I am your host, Gia, and I am extremely excited for this episode. As you can already see, if you are tuning in on YouTube, that today I have a lovely guest, a person that has completely changed my life, the person that taught me how to be comfortable in my own body and basically taught me how to channel in this physical world. And if this is your first time tuning into this platform, welcome. We talk all things energy here, how to land the highest consciousness through our portal, our vessel, our bodies. And today is going to be all about body and astrology. And if you can give me a hand in welcoming Rachel Hardy today. Woo! A little clap. I feel like it deserves a clap, Rachel. Because Rachel is a somatic coach, educator, a astrologer who helps people regulate their nervous systems, reconnect with their inner wisdom, and move through life's transitions with greater focus, energy, and creative power. She is a somatic experiencing practitioner, a somatic EMDR trained, and the author of the Shape of Happiness. She has spent over 30 years studying astrology as a language of energy patterns moving already through us that the body can feel before the mind can name. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Gia. I'm so happy to be here with you. It is just awesome to see you, to be with you, to be in your space as always. So thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I mean, I jumped right into my excitement in the beginning because I am truly so excited. I think I met you, Rachel, about actually 3 years ago now in 2023 is when I took I think it was called Calibrate program. Yes, and I remember just not knowing about somatics and not knowing anything how astrology fits into that or the Akashic field fits into that. I just remember gravitating so much towards you and whatever you were selling, I was like, I will buy it. I think this woman knows what she's doing. And I went in completely naive and you helped me so much in removing so much trauma out of the body that I was able to step into even a higher calling with the Akashic records. And I always say this, like the Akashic records are not out there in the ethers, they're in the body, they're in our bones, the wisdom that's running through our veins, our DNA. So I was actually able to access more, I would say, psychic information, more unseen forces, like the Akashic records, through the body after your program. And I feel like a lot of people don't know that. And they're always asking me, oh, how can you channel this, Jane? How can you do that? Well, it's because I worked with my body. I did a whole somatic program to release all I was carrying to really filter out, be present, and get access to the mind's eye through the body.
So cool to hear that. And yeah, to remember that with you. I absolutely remember meeting you and working with you those first few times and how cool that was. And you're absolutely right. Like we hold so much in our body. And when we want to be open to clearly discerning and channeling and accessing other fields of information, other states of consciousness, it's got to start with being grounded in the body and being able to be here first before we can open to other fields of energy and work in other dimensions. Like it's got to be grounded here. So I think it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I know we've been talking quite a bit about this podcast back and forth. And when I first brought this idea to you, you mentioned that recently you redefined your work in a really clear way. Um, how would you describe what you do now and in your own words, like what do you really do now?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, so the piece we were talking about specifically was especially about how I work with astrology and The funny thing is, it's not that how I work changed, but I became, as you said, really clear about what I was doing with astrology over like these last 2 years. It's been like the year and a half, last year and a half that this really crystallized. And basically, astrology for me is like a lens into what we might call the Akashic field or the Akashic records, or what can also be understood as the 0 point field in quantum physics. It's basically a way of reading information that is already there in us, around us. These are energy patterns that are happening, yes, in the cosmos, but also in us. We're part of them. And throughout history and across traditions, these cycles and patterns have been read and mapped and corresponded to what people were understanding on Earth. And there's a language here of energy that we can both read and understand and tap into and connect to. And that's where it's at for me, is astrology as these energy patterns and fields of information and consciousness that we can work with.
Wow. Wow. I don't think I've ever heard anybody put astrology together as like this whole picture for us to look at. Because I think to your point, it's always been such a separate topic. Like, oh, this is your birth chart. Like, this is what this star is, and this is what this planet is, and this is happening. And we are always looking at it as a outside thing. Like, we're not looking at it as, oh, this is our blueprint. This is who I am in the cosmos. And this is what's, going through me right now, and the patterns and all of that. So I love how you've made astrology a language.
I think that's a really important point. Like, the first thing, or a really important thing, is one thing you said there about looking at it as outside you.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of the first key place where things could go off, is when you look at it as like, this is either making something happen to me, and no, it's not about that, or like defaulting your own knowing, power, connection, and felt sense experience to something outside yourself. And it's not about that at all. These, again, are energy patterns that we're in, that we're living. And astrology is just giving us a map and a language to see what I already know, to give like form and concept and story. We were talking before we started recording, Gia, about the power of story. And that's what astrology is. It's myths, it's archetype, it's language described through stories that are part of our human consciousness. Like, that's what myth is. It's these stories that have been passed down that are so strong. And there are these energy patterns that we connect to through the vehicle of understanding the story of the sign or the planet and the archetype that it represents. So it's not just a formulaic, even though astrology is really precise, and I love that, but it's not about, it doesn't stop at a formulaic, this says that, therefore you are that. It's so
Hmm.
much like fuller and deeper and richer. It's, oh, when I tap into this aspect of what my chart says, and when I connect to that, I can feel and sense and get this stream of energy, this powerful pattern, and understand maybe what's happening in me, the impulses I'm feeling, the drive I'm feeling. There is this rich language of energy that I can connect to and feel, and look to in the most helpful ways to guide and support me in my path, in my next step, in wherever I want to go.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, reading it like a map, like a actual
Mhm.
blueprint of, your life. Okay. I have so many questions that are popping to my mind, but I don't want to fall off track. I'm doing my best here by staying on track. Um,
I'm good wherever.
Perfect. Yes, because you've also mentioned that, realizing after a long time of, feeling natural, of this is a natural feeling to you, of speaking, language as astrology as language and connecting it with the body and your somatics wisdom that you have. when did you start recognizing that you weren't just reading astrology, but you were actually working through the Akashic field with it?
Okay. Yeah, so I recognized it. It was a coming together of of a lot of different pieces over the past year and a half. But to describe them, I feel like I would need to go back in time a bit and go through a
Please
few
do.
pieces. Would that be okay? All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So let's see. To set the stage, I started I started studying astrology like, gosh, 34, 35 years ago. I would have been like 17, 18-ish. And there was this really strong pull to this language. And as a teenager, I was dealing with clinical depression and managing an autoimmune condition and a nervous system and functional freeze. And yes, those are all related. And in kind of navigating the extreme things I was going through in life, there was a really strong pull. Like there was something about this language of myth and archetypal meaning and depth that reached into some really challenging places for me and spoke to me so clearly, like beyond anything else that I knew. And one thing that was interesting, by the way, was this went even deeper than my mind and deeper than my beliefs. Because, as a kind of a side note, I grew up in a very religious environment, and I was actually taught quite clearly that astrology was wrong, that it was evil. And these teachings to me were not just about following the rules when it came to my faith. I was a deeply spiritual kid from the time I was super young. And I experienced that connection to my spirituality like through the lens of that faith for the first like 20-ish years of my life. So when I started feeling astrology talking to me, there was this really interesting conflict that went pretty deep because I was very strongly devoted to my faith, and here was something talking to me on another level. So there was this conflict there, right? But the point, to come back to your question, from the beginning, like this wasn't like a fun little game to me of like, oh, let's read my horoscope and see if it's my lucky day, you know? Like it was something much deeper than I would have been able to explain or describe or even conceptualize for a while. So that was like my entry point, and I dove into studying it. Once I fully embraced it, I just dove into this language and exploring this world of patterns and archetypal stories and how they spoke to me. And I really wanted to just be able to read it really fluently and be able to read a chart. So I was doing that and going along. And to kind of jump tracks, my formal work with what we call the Akashic Records, in a way, didn't start till decades later, like 2017. But there was a beginning of tying all this together much sooner than that. It was around like 2008, 2009, when I did a good deal of work with a teacher who would become a major influence on my life. Her name was Dr. Jean Houston, and she was basically one of the key founders of the Human Potential Movement. And her work involved working with altered states of consciousness and cultivating deeper capacities and skills as a human. So she was basically, the point is, she was working with the same fields of energy. She didn't call it the Akashic Records, but she did reference all the work of people like Ervin Laszlo, for example, who write about the Akashic Records from the science point of view, from the point of view of the 0 point field and quantum understanding. So she introduced me to all of that work, and I was weaving that all in and through everything I did. And um, I'll jump forward in time again there, and we're getting to the end of this story. But
We love a good story.
basically, in like 2016, 17, I went through a really intense dark night of the soul period, like very, very dark experience. And during this time, one of the things I did was a good deal of work with someone who I had recently met, now become one of my closest friends. Her name's Helen Vonderheide, and she was working with the Akashic Records. And so I did a lot of sessions with her as a client that spoke to me really deeply in this incredibly dark space. And when I came out of that insane year, one of the first things I did was go, oh, Helen's teaching this. I need to learn this. And so I did my first training with her in the Akashic Records in 2017. All right, so with me, we're bringing this all home. So here's where it all came together. So 2022 through 2024, I began studying with yet another teacher of the Akashic Records. And this was someone who I initially trusted very deeply. And eventually things started going very, very off. And I won't go into that story here, except to say this was a really difficult but important experience for me because it was like the most profound lesson I could have gotten in not giving away my own knowing and my own power. And it was a shock to realize like how much that had happened. So once I went through this and then separated from this teacher's world and frameworks and methods of study, after that, I went through a period, basically 2024 through all of 2025, of like a very deep reset for me of everything about this, of working with the Akashic Records because I had done it using her frameworks. I had taught using her frameworks and methods. And there was such a deep reset that needed to happen around all of this. I often felt like, do I even know anything? Like back to basics of how do I know what I know and what's going on here? And it was kind of like I felt kind of like I was going in with like a microscope or a fine-tooth comb, like into my consciousness as I worked, if that makes sense, and like seeing what I was doing and what was happening. And so I was naturally doing that when I was working with astrology as well. And I was like observing and in this like really deeper way than ever before, sensing, feeling, noticing, attuned to what is actually happening when I read. And then of course the somatic piece we haven't even gotten into talking about, but that was all there as well. So it was just this deep observation of what was happening. And at some point the awareness just dropped in like the way things do. And I was like, oh, of course this is what's going on. I've been reading charts through all the work that I have done and studied throughout my life that is like, it's one of those things that's so much a part of you that you don't realize you're doing it, like the fish in the water or,
Yeah.
and I realized like for one thing I realized was that these fields of energy we connect to in astrology, when we approach it with consciousness and intention and attention, we're connecting to energy patterns, we're connecting to these fields. And that just changed the game for me of seeing what was happening, that the whole process of meeting these energy portals was reading these fields of energy that we call the records.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. That honestly, I feel like we, of course, got the shorter version of your journey, your very long journey of 30, 35 years, as you're saying. I am very fascinated at the fact that despite being raised in a very, conservative, strict household, that was against everything that you believe in today, you still chose to go with it. And if that is not a calling, I honestly don't know what is, because that is, first of all, very brave to, be in inner conflict and be like, I love God and I love my family and I love my faith, but astrology seems really cool, and just kind of, being in that gray space, that space of uncertainty all the time and not knowing if this is a sin or not, right?
Absolutely.
The whole
Absolutely.
thing. So I honestly, I'm just so amazed by that because I don't know a lot of people that would continue. A lot of people would just brush it off, be like, no, 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 it's a sin. I'm being tempted by the devil. I'm not going to proceed forward. So this is definitely your true calling. 100%. The fact that you cannot nudge it off.
Thank you for that. And you're so right. And yeah, there are like so many levels to this that I won't take us too
Yeah.
far into, but it was pretty fascinating because there's kind of another whole story, which was my health journey, and there was a very parallel thing going on with the experience I was having with my health because I actually did a similar and parallel thing with even getting into what we call holistic health that is has become so common today that this probably sounds funny to a lot of people, but I was literally taught that acupuncture was like something to be wary of because it was new age. I know that it sounds pretty wild now, but no, I like all of these things that were like holistic health practices were put under the umbrella of new age, and that was all things to be guarded against because they could potentially like suck you into a wrong path. So that put me in a fascinating rock and hard place at like 14, 15 because I had been diagnosed and living with this autoimmune condition that, on the one hand, Western medicine told me was incurable and I was going to live with for life. And I was starting to see, well, when there are flickers of hope, they come through this strange world called alternative and holistic health. But oh, wait, that also is something that my faith told me was be at the best very, very careful about. I mean, yoga, same thing. I was like, wanted to practice yoga, and I was taught like, no, you need to be really careful. It's gonna pull you off track.
Yeah.
So the point of all this is, yeah, yes to the astrology and the pull of what was happening in my body and like the desire to heal what was happening in my body, which would wind up taking 30 years, but it would happen, was like so strong that that was there fighting against the beliefs and the faith I held that again were also like
Mm.
what I was so passionate about. So it was this weird like perceived battle between the spiritual and the physical, except wait, is that really my spiritual um truth that I'm inhabiting and experiencing? So yeah, fun times.
It sounds
You
fun.
know, normal teenage stuff.
Sounds fun. I'm honestly, I'm just so amazed. It's very rare that I'm speechless and I just want like my guest to kind of keep speaking and speaking. I'm just like listening here, like being a fly on the wall. But I feel like today's episode is definitely one of those where I'm just so amazed because you ended up curing this autoimmune disease.
Yeah. hmm it took decades, but it all actually turned around, which was like the thing I by that time had given up like hoping for in this lifetime. I had accepted like, all right, I'm gonna manage this for life. And then life turned things around and Uranus hit my Chiron, if we were going to bring it back to astrology, and
Yeah.
everything upended in surprising ways. But yeah, to your point, the thing that I expected to live with for life, the autoimmune condition I expected to live with for life, is no longer here. So, you know, the things we think are impossible are not. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny that you're saying this line, and you're such a testimony to your own work, Rachel. I like
Mhm.
that was the thing that really gravitated me towards you. It's because you weren't just someone on the internet going, yeah, I'll read your chart for you. I can open your Akashic records for you. I'm also a somatic healer and I'm an author. You had actually done somatic practice on yourself, where to the point you healed your own body. And you've been doing it for years and years. And I was starting to recognize, the individuals that step into your world and community never leave. You have long-term clients that keep returning. And because you're a testimony of your own work. And I think that is the best thing ever. I mean, it's like, unfortunately, sometimes we end up going to these I'm going to just use an example, like plumbers that have never even fixed their own house, that have no idea what their plumbing in their own house looks like, and they're out there trying to dig into your house and take out all your like pipes and let the water flow and whatever. So, so happy. I mean, you've done your work in your house, which I think is just such a testimony to your work and everything you're saying. And even when I like tune in, of course, we clear the space, we set our intentions. I got this, I just kept hearing this one line, which is so fitting to what you just said about, things we think are impossible are actually not. And it was about our free will. It was like, okay,
Mhm.
you have free will. You don't have limitations.
Yeah.
You have free
Yeah.
will. So next time you think I can't, I shouldn't, or you have any kind of doubt or even an excuse come up, you should
Hmm.
always remind yourself, no, you know what? Actually, I have free will. I can do whatever I want. So that means curing a disease. That means, going after your business idea or whatever it is, right? So we really are our own testimonies.
Thank you so much for all of that. And I love that. I love that you're landing on the free will point in particular. That's it's such a thing for me too. And
Mhm.
since we're talking about astrology today, I think I touched on this a few minutes ago, but that's such an important point to me that astrology is not about things happening that make you do something. It's the opposite. It's seeing more of what, not just seeing, but feeling, sensing, and experiencing more what is happening so that you can make that choice, so that you have that capacity to consciously choose instead of to default unconsciously react, which is what we otherwise tend to go through life doing a lot, is just sort of reacting from our patterns, from our habits. But when we can get into and not just see, read, map, understand, but also feel, this is what I'm in. This is the energy pattern I'm feeling. This is the emotions I'm feeling that I hadn't been tapped into. This is the desire I hadn't been recognizing. And astrology and our charts can point us towards each of those in a way that like helps me see like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how much I was feeling that. That's exactly what it is. But again, it's back to a connection of what I already know. It's not telling me to do something. It's not telling me what choice to make. Yeah. So
Wow.
super important. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm so blown away because again, like most people do see astrology as this like descriptive personality traits, timing, predictions, like a future forecast of, what can I be warned about, or, what is my destiny looking like and, all that stuff. But you experience astrology very differently, which I love. And when you're reading someone's chart with, this, I'm just going to say your whole personality, like your whole essence and your whole presence of you having wisdom of somatics, the Akashic field, the astrology, as a language. So when you're reading someone's chart with all this wisdom in you and your entire personality, what additional information or depth becomes available that wouldn't be like accessible through traditional astrology?
Yeah, so so good. I love this question, and I love what you're asking. I totally know what you mean, and I want to make sure I'm not saying like, oh, all astrologers, do it, don't do it right or anything like that. There's a lot of really, really good, solid astrologers out there. There's also a lot of bullshit on social media, but that's a separate topic.
Yeah.
Um, but to your point, when you are approaching it, I'm going to say first, not from like kind of a surface mental perspective, but from a place of meeting it as energy patterns, as feeling it, as sensing it. I think one of the biggest differences is that we stop working from strictly a mental level, like, oh, my chart says this, therefore I should do that, or therefore I know that about myself. That can be great as a start. Like I can get some information, but where things really change isn't at the mental level in most cases, at least not without a whole lot more going on underneath. And this is where we get into the whole realms of how trauma can live in the body and impact that choice place as well. Because again, I'm really big on like personal choice and responsibility and how you respond to what happens. But I'm also deeply trained in how trauma lives in the body and understanding how that affects your choice when you're in freeze, when you're spinning out in an old survival pattern. That's real too. So when we are meeting what's happening, not just from a mental level, but from a place of consciously and in the body feeling and meeting what is happening and what the client's experience of that is in their body, that's a very, very different place to actually create change, to actually choose, to actually maybe take a different path than just getting information that might be cool or interesting or, oh, look at that, but doesn't actually change you. And that's where all this work is at for me is like what's the outcome that we want? What's the intention? And one piece of this is that a client's intention is super important in a session because in connecting to that, we're connecting to their life force energy, where their energy wants to go, that desire that's pulling and magnetizing and being met by these cosmic forces that we're mapping and reading in the universe. But we're tuning into it and meeting it from a very different place. This is a little challenging to put into words, but I know you'll get it. We're meeting it from a very different place that is like truly meeting what needs to be met is the best way I can say it in this moment. And what that looks like is change actually happens instead of, oh, I should do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, but you still find yourself back in the same patterns. It's
Yeah.
like when we can safely meet the places that is that place I've always gone down path A because like the energy around it is so strongly wired in that direction, but I can come into the body, feel it, understand what's happening, and go, oh, this place where I've been like so driven to always respond that way. Oh, you know what? There's actually this other option that my chart is reflecting that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of, but my chart is saying like, what about look over here and go this path instead? And
Mhm.
when I can come to that place and actually meet it from a true here feeling, willing to be in the unknown and the messy and the uncomfortable and go, all right, yeah, I'm actually going to choose that way and try this path.
Mhm.
That's when life actually changes. That's when you actually see different results than the same thing you've been creating.
Yeah. I love everything you have said. Um, because I feel like a lot of times, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, we seek out astrology when we are so fearful of uncertainty.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. That's a good one.
And everything you've said is no, astrology is not here to feed your trauma responses.
Yep.
You latching out to a life jacket because you feel like you're drowning in life and you need answers right now and where are the planets and what's happening and how can I protect myself and the whole chaos we all have been there. That we
Hmm.
start doing that
Yep.
little the dance, right?
Been there.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, guilty of it too. We all do that little chaotic dance, right? But astrology truly is, again, anchoring into your free will and showing you blueprints of the options you have available that are outside of your survival, I would say your survival systems that you have running right now, right? You have a system set up to protect your money, you have a system set up to protect your emotional health, to protect your mental health. It goes, it collapse those systems and look at this. So that's what
Yep. Yep.
astrology is doing. And I love how your everything you said is about that. It's really not coming for a reading when you are scared. It's a strategy.
You are making such an important point here about the intention behind coming for a reading, which often is partly unconscious, and it's understandable. And a lot of people like, I mean, we absolutely reach out for something when we feel stuff like, and like, you know, you and I, we've all been there. Like we reach out for, oh my gosh, I need something. I need, and I think a really important piece of this whole conversation is like in that example, bringing the client into feeling that fear and like recognizing what's actually happening and being felt underneath the surface thing that they're reaching out for. That's part of the like part of the role I think as well here. Because like you said, yeah, you can reach out to astrology or any tool, tarot, anything you want, and reach for it like a you can reach for it in a way to not feel and face what
Mhm.
you need to feel and face, or it can and will take you exactly to what you need to feel and face, which is where things change. And sometimes people, you know, you start from wherever you are. So sometimes folks will reach out, you know, help, I need to feel better. I need to know if he's my soulmate. I need to know, you
Yep.
know, whatever the thing. And it's all good. It's all like part of the human experience. Like, but the I think the deeper work is often going just a bit underneath and being able to have the skill and capacity to feel like what's the scary stuff underneath the question, and that is where the transformational change is going to live, and that is where astrology can actually point us to, well, here's the thing you came in with, let's look at what actually might be going on underneath that. Because what are the energy patterns you're actually in, and from there, we can tap the client into, or myself, because I certainly do this with myself, into like what's going on underneath that desire for knowledge, that like need to get an answer, or a like the need to get some reassurance is often kind of an impulse towards astrology or a reading. And again, that's okay. I want to make sure I'm not like making that wrong in any way, you know? Like it's totally exactly right, the right place to be in your experience. And I want reassurance, but to be able to come into feeling that vulnerable place and how scared I feel right now and what's going on in the heart, in the space that like so desperately needs, and feeling, connecting to, and reading and working with that is what is actually going to totally change things. So,
Yeah. I love all that. I really do because you've read for me as well, right? Like I've come to you for astrology reading too. And I remember and I think we spoke about this before too, that when my mother had my birth chart drawn up, it was by an Indian astrologer in India who literally wrote the entire thing in Sanskrit. No one can read it now. Um, We're all
I just love that. That's just so amazing.
we just stare
Beautiful.
at it sometimes. Like mom will open it, she'll stare at it. She goes, I don't know what's happening in your life right now. Why are you a mess? And I'm like, Mom, it's in Sanskrit. You can't even read it. Like just close the thing down, right? Like just
I just
close it down.
love this so much.
Yeah. So and I love that you bring the body. I love that you bring, yes, we're intellectually, mentally, we're trying to process this ancient science of astrology into
Mhm.
somatics, because that's what you're doing, right? It is science. Astrology is quantum physics science, as you've said, and taking that logical science part and seeing what's happening in the body with it, where these emotions are coming from, and these experiences that you are maybe trapped in this pattern that keep happening, and what's happening in your ruling patterns and all that stuff, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it kind of takes me back because in my personal experience, like I said, my mom has, and my mom loves this stuff too. I call her the unconscious witch,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
she doesn't realize how powerful she is. I get all my psychic gifts from my mother and her lineage. Um, so when again, my dad, his family's not into this stuff. They're conservative. They go to the temple, they pray. All their faith is in the God. They don't do astrology. They don't look at feng shui, but like none of that stuff. My mother does. And when she had our birth charts drawn, of course, my dad was forced to participate against his will, but he participated and she told me about that experience. And she kept telling me that how in India, when they do your chart and the planets and everything, they also incorporate Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is a ancient um, medicine, reading the body, the doshas, and your personality traits, and how you should eat, and what routine you should have according to one's physical autonomy, pretty much, and anatomy, sorry, to their body,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So when the astrologers draft up your natal chart, what they do is they find your organs on the chart
Mhm.
and what planet is ruling what organ, which gives you a prediction of what illnesses you may face in one's life.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
if you don't have any illness, whoever karmically you ends up being your spouse, how are these planets ruling your organs going to impact your spouse? And if they will get an illness when they connect with you, because that karma will get tied into one.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
how deeply they read the charts. And
Mhm.
I think you're just tapping into ancient wisdom here, Rachel, when you're talking about bringing the body into astrology, because it's done a whole different way, of course, not how you're doing. Your method, I think, is much more simpler to understand, even though it's as deep as the Ayurveda one. And my mother also told me something else very interesting. She said, some information is so sacred in the charts, in your blueprints, that it is only whispered into the mother's ears. It's not even written on the chart because it
So,
could be very vulnerable information. If it goes out, someone can take advantage of you.
mhm.
And I think I shared this with you when we were like prepping for the podcast, that the priest that had done mine had whispered into my mother's ear that the before of the age of 10, she will have a chronic illness that will get to her. And you need to watch her health very carefully. And they had mentioned a lot about friendships, things about what kind of personality traits I should not become friends with, and environments and all these things. And at 9 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's not that my mother wasn't protecting me, they just weren't aware that children could get diabetes. She thought, oh, asthma,
Yeah.
an allergic reaction to something. Maybe she'll get like the really bad flu. Like she thought very naive things. Because back home in India in those days, like no child had diabetes, right? It just wasn't a part of their awareness. Um, but a lot of those things have come true. So
Yeah.
it always fascinates me how you're bringing the language of astrology and connecting it with the body to undo people's patterns, to undo their trauma response, anywhere they're stuck in life. And really, I think at a DNA level, actually move it out.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
actually move it out to the somatics. And I think that's where the somatics is fitting in. Your astrology language is you get the information, then you work on moving it out of the body. And at least that's been
Exactly.
my experience with you. So,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. The astrology gives us the info, it gives us the map, and then it's the connecting to the body and the somatic and nervous system work that gives us the how, what do we do with that? And how does that actually change? So, yeah, that's exactly right. And I love all of that about the Vedic astrology and the Ayurveda brought in. And yeah, I think that's one of like the most interesting things, and I think you and I have talked about this too, Gia, that traditionally these weren't separate realms. The intellect, the body, the cosmos, and when I first started thinking about like what am I actually doing here and trying to define it, at first I thought of it like bringing modalities together, but the deeper into it I went, I was like, no, I'm not bringing anything together. It's all this is
yeah,
all one what it always was. We've just in modern life split it up into here's your spiritual practice, here's your body,
yeah,
here's your, as if they are not talking to each other. But at the end of the day, we're talking about the same connection, fields of energy, experience. We're talking about one thing here. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. I feel like I gave you a list of questions, Rachel. I didn't go through them that much.
Whatever.
Perfect. I love it. So we before we jumped on here, we were talking about the energy of today and how we're moving forward, and it's a whole new era. And I personally feel it's a time for the feminine to rise and shine. And there's going to be a lot of things happening in the feminine energies, the changes, the turning waters, the whole thing. If you could, from your knowledge right now, explain through astrology and your full essence and presence of what's actually happening in the collective now and why are people experiencing such extremes like going to war and this and that, or like extreme miracles. Like I don't know about the world, but everywhere I'm looking, someone's got a baby. I also feel like we have a whole new frequency coming through with these children on the planet. And there's a lot of babies coming down. So I feel like where there's a lot of extreme happening, like extreme, if it's bad, it's so bad. If it's good, it's so good. And how would you interpret today's, just going to say challenging times?
Oh my goodness, how much time left do we have? We have a few hours to scratch the surface. Um, oh my goodness, yeah, they're like off the cuff. I mean, we've got Pluto in Aquarius right now, which is Pluto represents the total depth of the deepest transformation you could experience. Pluto like burns everything down so that the new can be rebuilt.
Mhm.
Aquarius is the sign of the collective, of the people, of progress, of the future, of a world that works for everyone. And Pluto moving into Aquarius, and this is a long-term transit we're in, started like what, last year? I'm lost as to where we are. What year is it? 2026. But Pluto moving into Aquarius has brought us into a very like total depth of transformation at the society level in particular, so that all the ways that like we've got this world that it does not exactly work for everybody. I mean, it's hardly working. And Pluto is going through and basically transforming at the collective level how all of that happens. So there's that. There is, I'm feeling like I want to mention like what's happening literally today, even though this is kind of quicker
Right.
than like broadly because it fits into the whole picture. I love that you and I, Gia, are film shooting this on a day that is really interesting astrologically, even though there's never not anything going on. Sometimes people are like, is there anything happening today? There's always something happening. But there is actually a really interesting moment today with Venus, which represents the feminine and the heart center, meeting up with Uranus, which represents sudden, unexpected, radical wake up change and being woken up to your next level of consciousness, often through like sudden, unexpected shifts.
Mhm.
Or if you were to feel into this and just like feel the energy, even folks listening as we talk about it, Uranus energy is often very electric, very um, unexpected, and it can feel like things getting shaken up. Uranus is sitting at the final mastery degree of Taurus today at 29 degrees,
Mhm.
and it's getting ready to move into Gemini, which is going to be a big change. Like, if we feel like there's a lot kind of going on, especially in the worlds of information and knowledge and communication, if it feels like a lot, it's going to be more. It's going to be even bigger change in the realms of ideas, thought, communication, how we communicate on all the levels, how we work with ideas and understanding. And what I'm talking about, I don't think I actually said it yet, is Uranus is about to move into Gemini. So one of the things that we're feeling is like right now, sort of poised on the brink of even more change and wake up and shake up happening, particularly in the level of communication on both like person to person and all of our communication, electronics, all the things, and um, like how ideas move and thought and all of that is about to get woken up by Uranus energy for like the next 7 years, give or take. So that's just about to happen. But what's really cool is that today, Venus, which represents the heart center, is meeting up with Uranus. And this is a transit that could feel like a lot of things. Uranus energy is unpredictable, but it it may be like a portal for a lot of folks listening to a wide break open, shake open experience that is ultimately about being able to receive more love
Mhm.
and more abundance and receive on all the levels. But it's happening through a way that might feel a little bit like, pooh, an explosion that just kind of like shook everything up internally or externally. This is one of those things where when we can use astrology to see what is happening and notice, okay, what's actually going on, if it feels like a lot of energy at the moment, is actually a meeting of the heart center with the energy of Uranus that is shaking up and waking me up to higher consciousness and to more freedom. Actually, Uranus is all about freedom.
Mhm.
Whatever has been in the way of your freedom, and this is true collectively as well, is also getting blown up and shaken up. So the takeaway for today, and by today I don't mean this day only, but like a few days in advance, is the invitation to drop into the heart and feel and allow whatever energy wants to move through right now to be able to be present and grounded in and moving through the heart center. And that might involve a release of emotions that need to be released from the heart space or whatever's been blocking. But there's a next level of energy that wants to pour through, and Uranus is kind of coming through like a wrecking ball. Sorry, but it's pretty strong. But the ultimate outcome is waking us up to higher consciousness. So those are a couple of the things going on. Pluto and Aquarius, broad backdrop. Uranus just about to move into Gemini, but heads up that today, we're filming this in late April. It's Uranus is meeting up with Uranus at the mastery degree of Taurus. And by the way, Taurus is all about the body. So we're invited to drop all of this energy and allow all the feelings, the energy, the experience to process through the body.
Wow. Wow, that's just one day. That's wow.
That's one day in
That's one day.
2026. This is the life we came for. We chose to be here at this time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, my laptop started dying in the middle, so I had to change my whole positioning, and that's why I'm here. And I think this was meant to be because it's way better lighting. So, but
that's
wow,
awesome.
I
Uranus rules technology. It hurt us.
okay,
Okay.
I am amazed, first of all, of how little we know for
Mm,
like in our day to day, like what's happening and what how things may be impacting us, from the cosmos, how maybe today's decision making is being impacted.
mm,
For me, definitely, because I woke up today and I definitely felt the Venus. I
mhm,
felt more like, oh, I just want to be more feminine. I want to take a bit of a nap, have a cup of chai. I'm going to put all my rings on. I wanted to look and feel very light. I'm wearing like a white shirt. Like I feel like my entire appearance today was
mhm,
impacted by the Venus.
mhm, mhm,
And higher consciousness, as you're talking about, changing times, coming into recognizing what freedom means
mhm,
is also something too, because today I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to set some real boundaries in my corporate job.
mhm, mhm,
I'm not going to respond to people when I don't need to. And I'm going to give emails a little weight. I'm not going to get to them right away. I'm going to hold more boundaries. So I'm just amazed at everything you said because all my decisions I've made today now all of a sudden make a lot more sense of why I felt what I felt.
mhm. That's a beautiful description. Yeah, we're talking about Venus, feminine, heart-centered energy, meeting Uranus, waking up to your higher consciousness in the realm of Taurus, the body. And you just described it beautifully, one way that this could play out. And that's the beauty of this is each individual experiencing in their own unique nervous system and body in day-to-day life, how these energies meet and mingle and what the highest expression of them that wants to come through is. What's the next level expression that wants to emerge as a result of the Venus heart energy being met by the Uranus wake up energy? That's going to look different person to person, but we just got such a beautiful example of one way it could look. So that's super cool.
Wow. Okay. I don't want this to end, but I know I have to. So, yeah, but um, you do have a certification that's upcoming as well. And I do want to hit on that because I think it's going to be life-changing for individuals that are seeking deeper knowledge. Um, what are you most excited to teach that feels different from what's already out there from your offerings? And what can people expect in the certification?
Yeah, so we are going to get into all of this. It's basically going to teach folks to learn how to fluently read a chart for starters, to understand, be able to look at a chart and get what all of these energy patterns and symbols and transits mean, and not just get them, but as we've been talking about the whole hour, to be able to know how to feel and work with and process this energy on a somatic level. Again, because this is where change and transformation happens. And in the working with both of those, how to connect to these fields of consciousness that we sometimes refer to as the Akashic records, the Akashic field, the 0 point field, how to connect in their unique way to these energy patterns, fields of consciousness that hold information, and how to bring all of this together in the most effective way for a reading that is not, that doesn't stop at just interesting information, but that actually has true skills to guide a client into transformation and change. How to put that together, how to actually read, feel, and understand this language in the body, in the felt sense experience, how to work with the nervous system in how change actually happens. That's what we're going to be bringing together over 12 weeks, but then also meeting monthly for a year afterwards. This is something I did in my first round that I feel is so important because something like astrology doesn't get mastered in even in 12 weeks. You know, it's an ongoing thing. And this felt, again, really important for the last round I did, and something I'm going to do again is that we do the 12-week and complete all the training, but then we meet once a month for a year so that folks can integrate, deepen, put it into practice with clients, get how it actually works and how this all plays together, build their business, build their work, and also track through the year how different transits feel and play in their bodies. Because after a year, we've gone through a lot of cycles of like what planets are doing. So even being able to track like what the sun in Gemini feels like in my nervous system, what, you know, when Uranus moves from Taurus to Gemini, what does that feel like? How does my nervous system respond? We'll be doing a lot of that. So that is what's up. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Wow. I mean, I will be there. So
Yay! I'm so excited.
I will be there. So
Cool.
that's exciting for me too. And honestly, Rachel, I feel like this was one of the best conversations I've ever had. It's just I enjoyed your wisdom, your presence, your personality, your whole personality, I'm going to say here. So thank you
You.
so much for gracing me and our entire audience, whoever is listening, with so much love, and wisdom. And I feel like your wisdom really feels, it almost has like a texture. Like it
Mm.
feels very real, mystical, and magical at the same time, which I find is really rare to find in humans these days. So thank you so much for coming here and just being a part of my little world and sharing all your wisdom. I'm so, so, so honored.
Thank you. And likewise, right back. I am so honored to be here with you and so appreciative of you. Like I I've probably told you this before, but I'll tell all your listeners, like you are an amazing soul. And I am just so, so grateful to know you and to be able to have you in my life. So
Oh,
thank you a
thank
million.
you so much. And anyone who's looking to connect with Rachel, and even if you want to get more information about the 12-week program she's running, all the links will be below in the descriptions. Please do comment, like, and subscribe, and let us know how you enjoyed this conversation. Until next time, ciao.